Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Africa Update here on Trust Television, reaching you from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. And on the show this week, we have a lot in store for you. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on Africa Update on Trust Television. I'm your host, Chiamaka. Nwafor. Now, this week on the program, we're going to be taking a look at the Alliance of Sahel States and its implication on Ecowas free movement and, of course, the effect of climate change on agriculture in the Sahel region. Now, let's get to the conversation of today. Now, the Alliance of Sahel States, formed by Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, originated as a mutual defense pact on September 16, 2023, following the Nigerian crisis. This crisis saw Ecowas threaten military intervention to restore civilian rule after a coup in Niger. All three countries, formerly part members of Ecowas, are now under military juntas after successful coups in Mali, that was in 2021, Burkina Faso 2022, and Niger in 2023. Now, the Confederation, established on July 6, 2024, holds an anti-French and anti-ECOWAS stance. Since the coup, the economic outlook for these countries has improved significantly. Niger, in particular, has seen substantial growth, becoming the third fastest growing economy in the world and the fastest in Africa by mid-2024. Now, joining me to discuss this and, of course, the climate change issue later on in the program is Honorable Wongbe. Did I get that correctly?
Yes, it's Wongbe.
Okay,
perfectly.
Wongbe. He's
Yes.
a member of the Liberian Delegation to the Ecowas Parliament and the Chairman House Committee on Foreign Affairs, Liberian Parliament. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
Okay, so you've heard our intro.
Yes.
And your Ecowas, because it's still happening. The Parliament is still happening.
Yes, we're in session.
Okay, and I'm sure this conversation has come up, the exit of
Absolutely.
Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger.
Absolutely.
Now, talk to me. What does this mean?
So, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be on your platform this evening. It's unfortunate that we have a situation where there's exit. ECOWAS was formed to focus on regional integration, and over the years, we've seen a lot in terms of how the benefits of ECOWAS. By the way, joining ECOWAS, I'm a freshman at ECOWAS. I didn't know the kinds of things that ECOWAS did until I joined ECOWAS. The impact that ECOWAS has had. I'm a child of the war in Liberia. I went through the war, so
okay.
I saw the first hand of ECOWAS intervention in Liberia through ECOMOG, right?
Okay.
I was a refugee in Guinea. I was a refugee in Cote d'Ivoire.
Okay.
And seeing what ECOWAS did to sort of ensure peace and stability. So I am honored to be sitting here talking about ECOWAS as well. Okay. This regional disintegration that's happening with our brothers from Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso is unfortunate, and I believe that one impact will be obviously free movement. ECOWAS reported 97% visa-free, and there's a huge push around the region for the entire Africa, for borderless Africa, where you have no visas across Africa, especially with the AU pushing the AFTA, right? And we're all signing up to those treaties.
Yeah.
That will also impact AFTA implementation as well.
Okay.
And free movement, economic activities, as well as security implications we will see.
Okay, so now let's hone it down to certain implications. Now, when we talk about economic implications, so you said after a while back, and I heard that a few days ago, Tuesday, I hear, for the first time after they were signed, 5 years after, Nigeria has moved goods now down to other parts of the country, of course, free of charge, as the AFTA agreement should allow. Now, in this case now, AFTA is for the African continent, not just ECOWAS, right? So that doesn't in any way affect Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, if I'm correct.
It doesn't in a way, but it does in a way.
Okay.
So, for example, if we are to remain regional integration, and they're leaving, you will see some sort of levies across borders. There could be levies, and that could impact traders. Who are the traders? our mothers, our fathers, our young brothers, right? The young people.
Okay.
So you see that happen. You also see some security implication within the region.
Okay.
Whatever happens to one country or the region could impact the other. You've seen Mali is the border, the countries they're bordering, Niger, and the countries they're bordering. So that is a part of it. So from an economic standpoint, you cannot divorce economic from security.
Definitely.
So what we see is, yes, AFTA will be implemented, but there could be some implications in terms of levies at those borders.
Okay, so now that you've mentioned levies, now let's see if we can hone it down to specific industries that are likely to be most impacted by the reintroduction of tariffs and trade barriers due to this exit.
Yes, so we may see crops, right? Crops, agriculture, most of the things that go through the borders. If you looked at the number of trade we do, we did over, I think, about 400 something billion in trade, the whole West Africa region, with the rest of the region. Now, and just right in this region alone, in West Africa, removing those three countries, and we have tax levies free. Agriculture is at the center of West Africa. Agriculture is at the center of Africa. In fact, 60% of the people in Liberia are farmers.
Okay.
And those goods go right through the borders. You will see people are talking about in Liberia, goods coming from Guinea, pepper coming from Guinea.
Okay.
And then we have our kinjus and other things that go through Guinea border. And there'll be levies applied to some of those things.
Okay, so basically one of the specific industry will be that of agriculture mostly.
Absolutely.
Which is mostly what we actually transport across borders. Now, how does this exit, how does it impact foreign direct investment in the region?
It may impact us in terms of the numbers that we calculate, in terms of what coming in the region. We're now 12, and we're working actively, by the way, to get our brothers back, our sisters back into the fold, and we can talk about some of those things. There's active solutions that we're looking at in terms of what we can do to get our brothers back. But foreign direct investments, most of the foreign direct investments coming into Africa, when we look at West Africa, it's cumulated across the 15 states.
Okay.
Right now we're 12, and that impacts our trade in terms of our numbers.
Okay.
In terms of direct impact, I don't see it in the short term being directly impacting the region.
Okay.
Most organizations that are doing foreign direct investments, they're not looking at it from a regional standpoint. They're looking at it from a country to country. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, migration and mobility, another supposed impact of this exit.
Major one. Yes.
Now, just talk to me about that, because you said major one. So let me allow you delve into that.
I mean, we have seen through the borders, and we're seeing irregular migration happen. Young people are leaving, by the way, from Niger, Mali, to come to greener pastures because they're looking for jobs and other things. So you will see that there will be challenges in terms of some of their people that want to go through the borders freely, free movement. That could be a huge, huge challenge, right? We've seen a situation where young people who want to go to school in other places, we're seeing it right here. I went to Kano. I met number of Liberian students in Kano going to school.
Okay.
So now, can you imagine if folks from Nigeria want to go to school in Nigeria? How would that impact them in terms of free movement? Okay. Free movement of people and goods and services, very important to the region.
Now, diaspora and remittances, we have that. We keep talking about that, FDI. And what will be the likely impact on remittance flows into citizens working in other Ecowas countries back to Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso?
I don't think we will see some direct hindrances, right? Okay. In terms of business. We'll see some taxes that may be levied. We have to go deep into some of the treaties that are signed. You know, we have this the Ecowas, free trade movement treaty we signed. But more importantly, there are some economic treaties that are involved, and that could make a real substantive impact in terms of what we see. Now, does that mean it's going to be right here direct? I don't think so. I don't think we're going to experience that right now. But in the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, if they do really leave, you will see. I mean, even
you're saying if they do really leave,
yes,
they have.
We are fighting to get them back.
How much is this fight? How much impact do you have in trying to get them back?
Let me share something with you. For example, we have a situation at Ecowas where the Secretary General is from Burkina Faso, right?
Currently, Secretary.
Yes.
Okay.
We have other people that are working within Ecowas that are from those 3 states. We have now removed them.
Okay.
That's a direct impact. And we've not made any moves that will signal to them that we don't want them back. We want our brothers and sisters back.
Okay. So now these people who are currently still working from Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, it doesn't feel like the opposition is working in the midst of you people.
No,
we're standing with our brothers and our sisters.
Yes.
Okay.
And we must push. And some of the solutions we have for ensuring they come back may not look so good because ECOWAS has already been implicated as a body. So we have to look at other means in terms of, how we can ensure they do come back. Because at the end of the day, the citizens are the ones who suffer.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's just touch a bit on security, and then we will go on a break and all that. So now, this exit, we've mentioned it earlier, the influence of this exit. Now, how does this collective security effort, you said ECOMOG, you are a beneficiary of the ECOWAS, military coming together. So how is this going to impact? Because these guys are still in the midst of ECOWAS countries.
Yes, but you should also understand that there was G5 before.
Okay.
G5 Sahel, they exited that as well.
Okay.
Right? And we're from the region. The entire region, Sahel, is fragile, and so is this ECOWAS region. Is fragile. That is going to be of impact, not in the short term, but in the long term. We exchange intelligence right in this region.
Okay.
We have war on drugs going on right in this region.
Okay.
All of those things will be impacted.
Oh, okay.
And I'm so thankful to our brothers and sisters from Guinea that decided to come back, and they're with us now. And we're calling on our brothers and sisters from those 3 states to come back to us. And let's sit at the table and let's see what we can do to improve.
Okay. That's we've been talking with Honorable Tar Wongbe from Liberia, and talking about the impact of the Sahel states exit from the ECOWAS. What's its impact on the sub-region, free movement of goods, people, and services. We're going to be on a short break, and when we come back, we'll be delving into climate change. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. It's still Africa Update on Trust Television, and we've been discussing with a member of the delegation from Liberia to the ECOWAS Parliament and the chairman of the ECOWAS, the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, Liberian Parliament. His name is Honorable Tar Wongbe. And earlier we discussed about the effect of the Sahel states exits from the ECOWAS on free movement of goods, people, and services. Now we're going to climate change issues. And now, according to a report, approximately 15 million people in West Africa are projected to experience food insecurity due to climate change between June and August 2024. Now, Raul Kaume, Program Officer for Climate Change and Natural Resources at the ECOWAS Commission, presented this alarming forecast to the ECOWAS Parliament in Abuja. Kaume's report attributes the projected food insecurity to rising temperatures and other climatic change elements which will negatively impact agriculture in the region. Initiatives to tackle the growing effects of climate change, as highlighted by him in his report, include the ECOWAS Environmental Policy 2008, ECOWAS Regional Climate Strategy and Action Plan 2022-2030, and the Regional Food and Security Storage Strategy and Regional Agriculture and Food Fund, amongst others. Now, Honorable Tar.
Yes.
we talked about climate change, and we see what's happening.
Yes.
Earlier in the year, we've seen quite a lot of things happen. The El Nino effect, where it's raining heavily, floodings here, and there's this drought over there. And even in Nigeria, we've experienced some of these things too: unusual heats, unusual rainfalls, and what that. Can you tell us more about this impact on the sub-region, and what is Ecowas really doing about it?
Yes, thank you so much. This is part of why I shared that when I was not in Ecowas. I didn't know, but Ecowas is doing so much, as you even shared, right? From food banks to seeds, study of seeds that will be adapting to our weather. Ecowas is doing so much around those things, taking into account, by the way, that within our region, about 60+% of people are farmers. And this region is heavily dependent on farming. I mean, if you look at Cote d'Ivoire, for example, cocoa. You look at Ghana, the cocoa sector, 70% of the world cocoa, right from within this region.
Yeah.
But that has global implications. Now, what Ecowas is doing, one, regulating from an environment standpoint, so that governments can take some of those policies and implement those policies. Sometimes it's harder than usual. This is why we have our country reports to report on all of those indicators to say how far we're going in terms of those indicators. Food banks, crop banks, storage, food storage, to ensure that, again, we're maintaining a certain level of food security within the region. Crops, seeds that we plant here, many of them are not sort of like indigenous to West Africa in terms of the seed that comes. So we need to make sure we have our own seeds. So right in Nigeria, they are looking at, even in Kano, they're looking at seeds that can even grow in different in different environments. Now, we will have to invest heavily in infrastructure, for example. That's one. And Ecowas is doing its work in terms of ensuring that we are connected. You can leave from Liberia right now and drive all the way straight to Guinea, all the way straight to Nigeria. Easily.
Okay, good roads.
I mean, somewhat, some terrible roads you have to deal with, but we have to deal with that. Okay. Investment in irrigation systems.
Okay.
We have to do those things, right? And then Ecowas is also working to educate our farmers in terms of how they plant for higher yields. One of the issues we have here is yields. We don't do real mechanized farming in West Africa. We're getting to that, but we're not doing that right now. I'm so happy that when I visited Kano, I keep talking about Kano, but I visited Kano. It was so amazing. Thanks to the Deputy Senate President, Honorable Barrow, he took us there, and I visited the rice factory. And it was amazing that, rice production has increased in Nigeria, and in a few years, Nigeria may be able to export rice.
Okay.
So again, ECOWAS is doing its part, but the governments are also doing the part. It cannot divorce ECOWAS from the governments. Once ECOWAS sets the policy, the government must implement the policies as well. Okay,
so now let's get down into certain aspects of the conversation where we're going to talk about, do you have an idea of specific areas within the West Africa that are more affected by climate change than others?
Even the Sahel region we're talking about.
Okay.
They're affected with climate change, heavy climate change, right? And that is coming down. Liberia, for example, we have heavy rainfalls, one of the highest rainfalls in West Africa. We do have that. So we're seeing some flooding, a lot of flooding taking place in Liberia. But the Sahel is experiencing drastic heat, and that could impact, again, agriculture. So again, we are one body. So how can we export to our brothers and sisters in the Sahel that need those food items, and then they're leaving? So it's a hand-in-hand situation. They're experiencing some very severe weathers over there. Nigeria, I was just in Lagos, it was flooding. I was asking, is this always like this? He said, yes, even Liberia is flooding right now. So we're experiencing some of those things. We have to obviously put in place some systems from a government standpoint, but also ECOWAS is doing its part in terms of the education, in terms of setting policies, in terms of making sure that, by the way, not only policies, but implementing programs to ensure we have, safe climate and not to impact our different countries.
Now, earlier in the when we started this conversation earlier, there were certain initiatives that were mentioned. One of them is the ECOWAS Environmental Policy 2008. Yes. Now, how is that policy affecting or impacting current challenges posed by climate change in the sub-region?
I would tell you there's one of the major challenges what I explained to you in terms of implementation. Sometimes, again, it may be policy, but we have to take those policies to treaties. Or something that the governments must be committed to. Sometimes we have these policies that trickle down to the various countries, because the various countries have their own environmental policies. So we need to ensure tighter integration with the countries and those policies. So, for example, one of the things he reported on is the fact that they have the policies, but have the policies been implemented across the board? And that's something we have to look at from country to country standpoint. And every time we come to report, we have to report on those indicators. For example, the environmental policy has not been something that has been really adapted across the region to that extent.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, earlier you talked about we're not mechanized farming people. So let's go to technology. Now, what role can technology play in helping farmers adapt to changing climatic conditions?
Major. In fact, my former firm, McKinsey, did a report, talked about major investment in new technology. And not only new, but irrigation system. You have drip irrigation systems that out there now, very, very affordable. We will be investing in some of those. In fact, one of the major things that we talked about is how to allocate budgets for those things at ECOWAS. And again, ECOWAS is doing its part, but the countries must do their part.
All right, then now. Climate change-induced agricultural disruptions is expected now to impact the overall economy of West African countries. Can you further speak to that?
Yes. So one of the major things we're going to see is drastic reduction in yields, production. And by the way, climate change challenges in Africa is a world problem because we don't add value a lot to our crops. So those organizations that are out there, I mean, those countries that are importing our raw materials, they will suffer from the time in terms of yields. That is a major. We cannot export things while we need them ourselves.
Oh yes. Yeah.
That's a major issue.
Yeah.
So we have those challenges as well.
All right, now we've talked about ECOWAS as a region helping itself.
Yes.
But is ECOWAS seeking outside help from the international community?
Absolutely. We're partnering with even the AU. We're partnering with USAID. We're partnering with USDA, the EU, and other partners to be able to look at these regions, figure out how we can support each other. Because again, we are one world. We're integrated in West Africa, but we're one world. What impacts West Africa impacts the rest of the region in Africa. What impacts West Africa impacts our trading partners. The 450 billion or more we're trading with, I mean, that will be cut short over the years if this continues.
Okay, just before we go, now how does ECOWAS plan to monitor and evaluate the effectiveness, which you said is not yet been implemented, but I hope there's a plan to evaluate and monitor the effectiveness of its climate policies and action plans?
That is exactly what we are talking about now. So monitoring and evaluation is a very, but by the way, that's the work I do for a living. Monitoring, evaluation, and data research. So we are actively trying to push to ensure that we have monitoring evaluation framework for ECOWAS to be able to monitor and evaluate its policies. So that is on the way. We have not completed the framework yet, and we have not implemented the framework yet, but that's something that's on the way.
Are you going to give us a bit of an idea of what you guys are working on?
No. I'll be back here to share the details.
Okay. All right. It's been a quite very interesting and very insightful conversation here on Africa Update, looking at the exit of the Sahel states, that is Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali from the ECOWAS, its impact on free movement of goods, people, and services, and of course, climate change, the effects of climate change on agriculture on the sub-region of West Africa. And I've been speaking with Honorable Tar Wongbe, is a member of the Liberian delegation to ECOWAS Parliament, and he's the chairman of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, Liberian Parliament. I don't know why I always pause at that, but that's it. It's been a very wonderful time on the show today, and don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms, on our YouTube live stream for more of our news, programs, and documentaries. So I see you same time, same place next week. I am Chiamaka Nwafor. Bye for now.